Oh, Billy's here, I see. He's walking. Can you unmute Billy?
I don't see him. Is he?
He's on the iPhone.
Okay. I see it, Billy.
Hi, everyone. I'm very sorry. I'm on my way from awake, unfortunately. So I'm going to be walking for the first half hour or so of this meeting just so that I can participate. But if it gets too noisy, I guess I'll mute myself. Just let me know.
Okay. Maybe it may pay to turn the video off if you can.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks. Oh, that's better. Okay, should we get started?
Absolutely. Just give me 1 second here.
Let me raise this a second. That's better.
Okay, good evening, everyone. A few notes for you, particularly if this is your first meeting with us. You'll notice that you are muted and unable to mute yourself. After each speaker, the co-chairs may call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can ask to be recognized by raising your virtual hand, and you can do that by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. It's important not to raise your physical hands or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you among the participants. If you are on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute. Once you're recognized by a co-chair, I will unmute you and you may be prompted to confirm unmuting on your device. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you can access the raise hand feature by clicking the participants button on the menu at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. The chat function is available for technical support only, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. You can send me a chat if you're having any issues and I can help walk you through them. Okay, Kaz and Billy, back to you.
Okay, first item on the agenda is update of funding from the New York City Council. Maybe we can have Cameron on that. Can we, Cameron and Jesse?
Sure, thank you, Kaz. I appreciate it. My name is Cameron Kaufman. I'm the Director of Constituent Services for Councilmember Julie Menon. And I know that Jesse from Keith Powers' office as well will be sharing kind of the allocations that our offices have been making over the past month or so in response to this past budget in working on sanitation concerns. You know, it is a top constituent concern that we are getting in our office, both rats, trash on the streets, and a bunch of other waste concerns as well. And we wanted to be proactive. So I think for my remarks, Jesse and I spoke in advance, I'll focus, you know, we allocated both of our offices substantial sums in supplemental allocation to Disney to get litter basket pickup to the highest level that it's been. We're at 4 times a day, 3 times a week. So, you know, there are very high density, busy litter baskets that are getting serviced 4 times a day. That does make a difference. And we're thrilled about that. And, you know, both of our offices are committed to providing funding like that to ensure that baskets along the CB8 corridor get the service that they need. In addition to that, though, I want to talk about rats, which is something that's been in the news as of late. The mayor making his announcement that pickups, you know, to put out garbage at 8 p.m. as opposed to 4 p.m. and focusing more late night pickups. We're certainly in support of that. Our office, though, got creative and we decided to try and use some discretionary allocations to tackle the rat issue directly. And so we're working with Wildcat, and Wildcat, through one of its other subsidiaries, is got a pest control arm, and we have identified 80 to 90 tree pits in the neighborhood across CB8 that need to be treated. And we've worked on a treatment method. The new kind of popular method is using carbon monoxide. That's what the Department of Health also has started switching to, but that is what the pest specialists at Wildcats agree with. So we are going to be hopefully starting next week with a device that we funded and you know, funding for an individual to be going around and hitting those tree pits consistently through the end of the calendar year. And then we'll be able to check back and look at the efficacy. We got great feedback from constituents on blocks all across the district that had tree pits with issues, going all the way down to the 60s up to, I think, 91st, one of them. So we're hitting a wide variety of places. We are excited about that. And, we think in conjunction with the mayor's recent efforts as well, and just the general kind of great efforts that our office is partnering with Councilmember Powers' office on, with whether it's supplemental sanitation and then, of course, the increased pickups, that hopefully this will create a dent in the rodent crisis that we're facing. But, I will leave it at that from our side. I know Jesse's got a bunch to share as well.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, so we have, like Cameron was saying, we've also boosted sanitation services in the budget. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about ACE, which is the supplemental service that both of our offices fund. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with ACE, but they can provide kind of as needed services. So if you notice an area where you feel like there's a lot of trash in the street, that might need some extra pickups. We've been hearing calls about, overflowing bins. We received a bunch of calls about the intersection of 77th Street and Lexington being one of those areas. So we've been able to sort of create routes where ACE can go permanently, so that they know that that area needs extra attention. And like I said, if you live in either of our districts, just contact our office. And we can send them out as needed. So they'll go to whichever location is currently, needing pickups. Our office also funded what's called a mechanical broom service. Again, you may all be familiar with this, but it's like a modified street sweeping service that operates overnight in areas that might be otherwise like difficult to reach. And so that's kind of another initiative that we've been trying to work on, because we've heard that, street sweeping has been kind of an issue as well with, the alternate side parking rules that were suspended for a while, and people have been noticing some more trash that way. And I think when I first logged on, I heard someone talking about the, community recycling and organics programs that have been going on in Queens. I just wanted to chime in and say that we do have a bill that we introduced called the CORE Act. And that bill would extend, access to composting and recycling throughout New York City. And that would require easily accessible drop-off sites for organics in all community districts. And that would be open for at least 20 hours a week. And then the second bill allows for collection of recyclable materials, like electronics, textiles, and like other materials, which can't be disposed of into, our general waste stream. So we are looking forward to having, a program like that for composting throughout the city, not just in Queens, but the pilot program is currently happening in Queens. And then, just to go off what Cameron said, I mean, both of our offices have been working on rat mitigation efforts. I know that's a huge concern. We're supportive of the mayor's new initiative, but we also have a couple of pieces of legislation that I know, Councilmember Menon is in support of as well. Those would basically just, do various things to kind of mitigate rats from requiring trash receptacles in buildings with a high concentration of repeated rodent infestations to be made of certain materials, so that it would minimize those infestations. We would also have like designated rat mitigation zones where, rats are of a particular concern. Another big concern is that construction, as we know, typically can cause issues with rats. So part of that legislation would be that any construction, that would be applying for a permit in a rat mitigation zone would need to perform rat abatement efforts before they were approved for that permit. So these are definitely things that are on our radar, and both of our offices have been working pretty hard on this, and it's definitely been a priority. So that's it for me.
Yeah, to both of you, is this more concerned with CB8 area and your council district, or are the initiatives citywide? Both with the funding, the extra pickups, and everything else.
So funding the extra pickups is localized to our districts. That was funding that we chose to allocate specifically. But the bills would apply citywide. So like for the Core Act, those would be bills that would apply to the whole city.
Yeah, and sorry, Cos, but I want to point out, I believe that CB8 has the highest level of pickups at any community board now in the city, right? That
Wow.
Manhattan already has higher than the rest of the city, and we've got it up to the max of what DSNY advises. So we are very excited about this kind of joint funding to get the levels in CB8 to what they're at, and that is just CB8. Not to say, we also are in CB6, as is Councilmember Powers, CB11. Our other community boards are also getting good funding, but we get such a centralized CB8 sanitation complaints that we wanted to make sure, especially there, that the levels were up to snuff.
And what about the 8 p.m. Curbside putting out of the garbage? Are you getting pushbacks from buildings?
Not yet.
I haven't heard anything yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We might get some. I mean, it's relatively a new. They announced it a week ago, and we'll have to also help spread the word, which we were committed to doing.
Right. But when does that take effect?
I thought immediately, but I have to double check.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, I see Craig's got his hand up. Is anybody from the public? I mean, raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you anytime. So, Craig, can we unmute Craig?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jesse and Cameron. A few quick questions. So I guess the first question I have is, do you have at your fingers the bills that you were alluding to? I didn't know if there was any chance we would be able to discuss it tonight, or if it would be helpful to be able to consider passing resolutions in support of it if we thought it was appropriate. I'm particularly interested in the composting funding question. I don't know if that's coming up next or if that's part of this discussion here, but my understanding was that as of now, there's a finite amount of funding to continue the curbside composting program, which is at Asphalt Green right now. And I just want to find out where that stands, and if there's anything that we need to do to help advocate to make sure that continues on an ongoing permanent basis. And then the second question I had is, when you were referring to the programs in Queens, the program that was a pilot in Queens, which program was that specifically? Because I was in Astoria a few weeks back and I saw the I saw the bins that were I guess considered part of the drop-off composting program in Astoria, and I guess that's a pilot. And I guess if I'm not confusing it with a different program, they're doing that in Lower Manhattan also, and that is something that I would be very interested in seeing if we can bring to Community District 8 as well, where the composting bins are available for anyone to drop off at any time, as long as you subscribe to the program and you are given a code to be able to gain access to it. This way it separates those who don't know that may not only put in food scraps with those who are going specifically to drop off food scraps, and people who have learned about what is appropriate to put in.
Yeah, so actually Marissa might be able to answer the composting question a little bit more accurately. I don't know exactly what program is current, if there are multiple programs currently going on in Queens. There might be more than one. But they were doing a pilot program for I believe the drop-off sites for the organic materials, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that they do have multiple. I don't know if Marissa can speak to that, but
So originally over the summer, we started in Astoria doing our smart bins, which is what you were talking about,
Smart
which
bins,
was
thank
out
you.
down in Lower Manhattan as well. You just need a QR code, you can scan it, and then you can put in any organic material that you have. Starting this past October 3rd, but we started doing outreach over the summer on August 15th. Working with everyone in Queens, there is universal, basically curbside composting collection for every resident in Queens. That's including leaves and yard waste as well. But they're getting that collection every week. That is the only borough that is getting that borough-wide. Everyone else is just the select 7 districts that we originally started with. I do not have an expansion for the smart bins or for another district to be added. We're still waiting to see how the Queens collection is shaking out. Again, we just started that October 3rd. We're still doing a couple of bin giveaways as well. People can use any bin they can, but we're still doing some of those. So we won't really have some good data for a while. It's also going on a hiatus after December from like January, February, March, and we're starting back up again in April. So I don't realistically think we're adding another district to receive curbside collection until the spring. I do not know that for sure, but from what I've heard that's coming down the pipeline, haven't heard anything. So I don't think we're going to see any new districts until the spring. I hope I'm wrong, but if we're going on hiatus in Queens, I imagine then we're not going to add anybody in the winter.
Okay. And what about funding for the programs such as the drop off at
Craig,
Pro NYC?
No, we fund that. We funded
Oh.
that, I believe for the entire year. Yeah, I know. We haven't done a good job of getting signage explaining it better there at the site. But yes, that was one of our major allocations that we were excited about. I cannot share it right now, but hopefully in a week or so, we will have a major composting site announcement regarding all Community Board 8 and Community Board 6. All within Council District 5, but we are hoping to do something that's pretty novel and create. There's clearly a dearth of sites, especially the 2 sites that we have in District 5 are one is on 91st and one is on 96th. So anybody who lives in the 60s, the 70s, the low 80s, it's not particularly convenient, and it's the sites are not operating that frequently. I can't really share more than that, but when you will see it, we will message it out. We will share it, come back to the community board to talk about it, even if you want. But we are very aware of this shortage. And, while there's broader citywide things at play with regards to the rollout of curbside composting and, where it is and where it isn't, we're trying to at least make the drop-off sites as robust as possible. And we are really excited about something that we've been working on for a long time and should be done maybe within a week if we're lucky.
All right, thank you. We look forward to it.
But my question is, if you look throughout the city has allowed all the restaurants to build an unbelievable amount of sheds on the street. Why can't we have certain smaller or, mid-sized composting on the street near the curb once a week or twice a week? They would be there for one day, half a day, or whatever. Why can't we have that?
So that's like legislation that we're working on right now. We are trying to make it so that like community composting is more widely available. I think at this point, it does come down to funding through DSNY for DSNY. Again, we did try to increase the budget as much as we possibly could this year, knowing that, the sanitation budget was a primary concern after COVID. Again, I don't want to have to keep asking Marissa, but I don't know the exact logistics behind why that might be more difficult than just, or why it might be an extra burden on DSNY. Obviously, the extra materials and having to separate the materials, it might be more complex than just the space that it would take up on the curb. I'm not sure, but that is something that we're hoping to address with some of these new sustainability bills that we're pushing.
The other thing, there's a bill or there's a law about cardboard boxes and paper. I mean, I'm walking on the street and I see half the sidewalk taken up by one bag of these boxes unflattened. And why can't the legislation be that all cardboard boxes be flattened? I guess
believe
that's a
they're supposed to
Marissa
be.
question. Well, if it's a legislation, then it's a Cameron and Jesse question. Otherwise, it's a Marissa question.
Sadly, that's a Cameron and Jesse question. That's a legislation question. Through the charter, it says if it's in a clear bag and it's all the same material, then it's totally fine. It's not a violation. There's no issue
Right.
for us on our end.
So
Yeah, so
it's
that
a
would be
Jesse
why-
and Cameron problem.
Yeah, so it would have to be that there would have to be changes to the current regulations. So I can definitely take that down and pass that along. I would,
When you walk down the street and you see all these cardboard boxes and bags, one box per bag taking up, you could reduce the space by about 70, 80, 90%.
yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share that with our legislative director. I'm sure Jesse will do the same and can see there might already be an outstanding legislative request that another member has, but because it's certainly a reasonable idea.
So that'll take effect November.
I wish
Can
it
we
was.
unmute? Can we unmute Diego?
While you're doing that, if you lose me, it's because my phone has died. So I'll join as soon as I'm at my computer. That happens.
Oh, wait a minute. Who do we have? Billy.
Can I?
Diego can go first.
Okay. My comment is a little bit off topic and more granular. I heard today, I heard this week Tish speech about the time of the collection. And at the end, she was asked about these containers, the European type containers. There's the side loaders, the rear loaders, the bilateral loaders. And she says that they're doing a study of 20 weeks to study it. I'm currently working with NYCHA on a pilot program to implement it. I have a small business and this is what we distribute. We've been working with them since March. So my question is, these two programs coordinated at all, or they're starting from zero again? And I'm in contact with NYCHA and in contact with the DSNY. We presented them, they have the containers, they're in Long Island City, but no one has contacted me from the city. And also yesterday, Julie Manin said that she's working on legislation on these containers. And I don't know what this legislation is about, so I would like to know. I tried to search, but I couldn't find anything. These containers will solve all these issues about time and composting and stuff, because you can just drop it and forget about it. They can be on the street taking a parking spot. Well, actually, 2 containers take the space of 1 parking spot, and 2 containers can help 100, conserve the trash of 100 residents. So you will have 4 containers per block, maybe, and it's all done. I live in a small building. We are 20 units, and this new program is going to start in April. I have no problem with the trash being late, but my super will have a problem with the trash being late because he lives in the Bronx. He will have to come here at 8 o'clock. That means he will be back to his home at 9 o'clock. His kids will be in bed or tired or whatever. A solution that Tish gave is that we can put them in containers. She didn't call what containers are, but we see these tote type rolling containers. And I mean, they can be pretty big, but they can be pretty heavy. So how is the DSNY going to lift them? So for that, there's a rule that the container cannot be bigger than a certain size, which is actually pretty small. So I think the city has to improve and put like lifters so we can put these containers, roll them to the street, and then the DSNY can come with their trucks and then advance in the other pilot programs, which will actually save money to the city. And regarding these containers, trash bins on the corners overflowing, I mean, there's solutions for that. There's a big belly. We put more big bellies, and there's the Europeans have bigger capacity that are even cheaper with sensors, and they will tell you when to pick it up. I have seen the sanitation department going around picking up containers that are empty. But I mean, they're doing that. So why go and pick up every container in every corner? I live on 96th Street next to the subway station. So there's a lot of people, but there's not always a lot of people. It changes on the days, if it's a holiday, if it's not. So if you put sensors, which cost $200 per container a year, including the service and everything, you're done and you will save more money. And there will be no $180,000 for 3 months to pick up the containers one more day. And I'm willing to help. I mean, if I can give my information, I already actually emailed the community board. I never got any response back from them, but if I can help, I'm willing to help. Thank you.
Well, I mean, these meetings are not to solicit funding or by individuals. So if you're interested, that should be taken offline to either DSNY or your local council member. But that question was for DSNY or Jesse or Cameron, or I guess to all three.
I think in regards to whether the new program announced by Tish is in any way related to what's happening at NYCHA, I don't know, maybe DSNY might know that. But in regards to other things you mentioned, like making sure that we have sensors so that we're not, picking up empty cans and things like that, I'm happy to, relay that to our legislative director. I'm not sure if that's on our radar. I know that we're exploring a lot of different options right now, so I'm sure that, they would appreciate hearing whatever input we can get. And I definitely understand the concern about supers having to come out late at night after work to put the trash out. I'm sure that that's something that we're going to we're going to get pushback on. And I definitely understand that. And again, I'm happy to bring all of these concerns to our legislative team and see what we can do, for future legislation that's put forward.
Yeah, and just to add on that as well, I want to make with regards to containerization, right? NYCHA is residential. Most of the clean curbs we're talking commercial is where it's starting, and looking with business improvement districts and partners like that. So they're not related. I mean, they're related in terms of the goal and belief that containerized garbage will be a benefit in many respects for the city. But due to the many different points that you made regarding, having to actually lift the containers, having sensors, all these different things that the city does not have right now, is not our sanitation infrastructure. It requires pilots, and it requires kind of a working out of the kinks. So that's the stage that we're in. And, we are, I think both of our offices are very supportive of those efforts wholeheartedly. And we're looking forward to seeing how they progress and whatever we can do to assist in them.
Yeah, I think just to go off what Cameron said, it's sort of like it's a process of trial and error. Right now, we're trying, certain efforts that relate to composting and, containerizing trash so that we can mitigate rats and things like that. Like I mentioned before, the Core Act that we introduced has a stipulation that we would have to containerize trash so that rats, buildings over a certain number, I should say, would have to containerize their trash to mitigate rats. So, what you mentioned is definitely really relevant to us, and we're trying to, get as much support as we can for legislation like that. But yeah, it's going to definitely be a process that we're still working on, and we're open to ideas. So thank you for sharing.
Question for Marissa. Does DSNY only have manual garbage pickup, or do they have the automatic with a lift of the containers?
So we have two different programs that don't require manual labor. That's our roll-on, roll-off, or that's our ROROs, and then our Easy Packs. ROROs are the very giant containers. So that's where we pick it up onto like a flatbed and bring it and dump it, and then we bring back the container. That's a one-man operation, and that, there's not a ton of buildings that have that. The Easy Packs are the ones that have the arms that come from the front and lift it up like over your head kind of situation. Not a ton of buildings have those as well. The problem with those trucks are that we can't put a plow on them, so we can't use them for snow operations. And we pretty much need the whole fleet to be able to have snow capabilities, to have plow capabilities. So at the moment, we are not expanding the Easy Pack program. The buildings that currently have that, you know, receive Easy Pack service, they're the ones that receive it. We're not really expanding that. The roll on, roll off, I think we're doing more of those. Like I don't think that's on a pause or anything like that. But it's all otherwise manual labor. Thinking about, you know, having a truck to pick up a container, or like there were talks down in CB4 about adding a hook and all these different things. That's all about funding. And that's also a union issue as well. It's about having to teach and train all the sanitation workers and everyone on that title how to use the new equipment. And also, can we attach a plow to it? If we can't, do we need a whole new fleet just for snow? So there's a lot that goes, there's a lot of, believe me, this is something DSNY, all of us, I've been in the conversations, we've been talking about this for a while, still trying to figure out what the best solution is. We do have a new commissioner. She's been coming out with a lot of new ideas and a lot of new programs. I'll see when this comes around. She has a new, you know, she has her own team here that are new. So they have a lot more input, you know, new faces, new thoughts. So we'll see in the coming months what happens, but we are gearing up for snow. You know, November 1st, we go into snowplow season. So we also want to see, you know, some new things that we're doing with snow, how that also works as well. So we need to be able to add a plow to the truck. That's really the biggest hurdle that we have with like the Easy Pack type trucks. We don't want to add more. We can't really use them for the big important stuff.
Can we unmute Billy? He may have an important.
Well,
He's unmuted.
I don't know if they're important, but I do have a few questions. And if we lose power, we can go to Gene and I'll be back in a minute. So I just want to pick up on Craig's question. It was about the CORE Act. We as a board passed a resolution, I think it was last year, supporting the CORE Act. So my question is just, has the legislation changed at all such that we should pass another resolution supporting it?
To my knowledge, it hasn't changed since we introduced it. I will have to get back to you and just double check with our legislative director because she would know more about the nuances of that. But to my knowledge, it's still the two stipulations that I mentioned about, let me just make sure that I'm getting the language correctly here. So the CORE Act, it's two pieces of legislation. The first bill increases equitable access to composting and recycling with those drop-off sites. And then the second one would be to allow for the collection of like recyclable materials like electronics, textiles, et cetera, which can't be disposed into our general waste stream. So I don't know if I'm sure you still have a copy of that resolution. If you wanted to email that over to me, I'll put my email in the chat and I can definitely double check that for you. But yeah, to my knowledge, I don't think there have been major changes to that, but I'll have to check and get back to you.
Okay, and a question for you and for Cameron. I noticed Councilmember Botcher, I think, partnered with NYU on a containerization pilot. I'm wondering whether either of you are working with local institutions at all to try to pilot containerization in any way, and if there's anything that we should be doing as a board to support that.
Well,
I'll just say,
sorry, no, Billy, I think as Jesse and I both said, both of our offices are very supportive of containerization and have been speaking and requesting, right? I think the key is that when we've met with DSNY officials, you know, any sort of piloting that can be done in our district, we have opened up our arms and said, you know, we're happy to do it. Whatever you need from us, let's do it. Right. At the end of the day, that decision comes down the pike from DSNY. But we have made it abundantly clear that it's something that we are supportive of and want to participate in however we can. I think that you know, at least for Council District 5, you know, there's certain areas that make more sense than others, but if we had a bid on 86th Street, it would make a lot of sense to do it there. We don't have a bid on 86th Street. That's something that we are working on. And when we make progress on that, that could be a great place to have containerization, maybe by the hospitals, working with them. But, in a neighborhood like ours, which kind of seamlessly goes from residential to commercial in this kind of erratic way, it's not so easy to find kind of the right spot for containerized waste. But we have said to DSNY officials that, if there's any opportunities that we can be part of the pilot, that we would like to be.
Yeah, all I was suggesting is it wasn't clear to me if what Councilmember Botcher did was starting with DSNY, or if it was through communications with NYU, and then maybe DSNY gets involved at some point, right? But it's perhaps the conversation started there. So I wasn't sure whether you had looked at what they were doing downtown and if that might be a good starting point.
Well, we'll certainly look into that. I think we are under the impression that DSNY has to approve anything of the sort like this. And, I don't know where in the process they were approached, but I think that there are at this early stage a lot of different considerations that they have internally about approving any sort of containerized pilot, wanting to make sure that they have the right partner institution, B, the right location, and C, just that they think it's going to be feasible logistically with their routes and their pickups. So.
Okay. Jesse, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that.
I would just echo what Cameron said. We're open to really any sort of pilot program. Again, I would try to, get DSNY involved from the beginning, just because we will need their, support no matter what. But yeah, I'm definitely open to the fact that, or I'm definitely aware of the fact that, these sort of pilot programs are important. And if there are any local organizations that are working on them, this is something that we're trying to do as much research and outreach as we can. I know that this is a bit more in the wheelhouse of my legislative director, so she might be able to speak more to the outreach that she's been doing. But we're certainly open to it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Marissa's here tonight to take it to her higher up. So maybe we can start something going.
Yeah, I think just the main thing is with Councilmember Botcher's program there, he was working with NYU. We need that other partner. It can't just be through the council member, through the elected officials office. So I think that was just, like you said, there's no bid on 86th Street. So I think that's the only hurdle with the Clean Curbs program in the Upper East Side, or we can just say within CB8. It's just you need that partner, and it can't just be through the council member's office. Someone's got to.
But the council members can reach out to certain parties that could be the third party, couldn't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
Of course. If they identify folks, yeah, they could do that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what my question was driving at. I just one last question, Marissa. I think this is going to be for you, and I only say this because I've heard it from constituents, and I don't have a good answer. So, constituents will look to Europe, and they'll see models where you've got a trash bin, and the trash gets compacted seemingly a little bit beneath the can itself. I don't know whether that's underground or some other way, but call it, let's say, a foot beneath the surface. I know we have a lot of utilities underfoot here in the city. Is there any way that could be done when streets get resurfaced to put in new trash cans that we see in other countries and other cities where some sort of compacting is happening somewhat beneath the surface? Do we have that capability? Has DSNY ever looked at that?
I don't know if we've ever looked at it. I think we all know only Roosevelt Island has the beautiful pneumatic tubes where they can do that.
Right.
I think that's definitely a DOT question first and foremost, because I can't even tell you what's underneath the first layer of concrete. I believe it's dirt, oddly. But underneath that, with all the power lines and between the subway and everything, I'm not really sure. And then it's just how would DSNY then service those corner baskets if half of it is below ground-ish type situation? I think that's something to look into, but I think definitely asking DOT first, what's beneath our feet is the real question, because I'm not 100% sure how far down you would go, or I don't think that's a conversation we've had, although again, I'm not a chief, so I'm not sure. But that's something I can bring back and see if we can mull that over. but DOT would have to be in that conversation first.
That would be great. And perhaps I can raise that at the Transportation Committee as well. But if you can come back with anything you learn, we'd of course appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, we have Craig here tonight, so he'll take that back. I saw Jean had her hand up. Jean, do you want to, can we unmute Jean Lopez?
So my comment's a little bit old now, but two comments. One is that the pickups, the change of hours of the pickups, I'm pretty sure it starts in April. I talked to my building super right after that was being talked about, and I thought he might actually not be excited about it. I live on 88th, between 88th and 89th. It's a full block building. And the porter who handles trash was there at the same time. He said, no problem. He would be happy to come in and put the trash out at 5 in the morning for a 7 a.m. pickup. So, and then my super said the only challenge for him is later day staffing. But I know as someone who's, I know a lot of working class people in New York, people who work as porters, this and that, they are happy to come in early. They love to get in early and then be done at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So the early morning is not bad. The other thing about that is my porter said, is that once the trash is not sitting out in those bags, people are not dropping more unbagged trash on top of it. That happens all over the city all the time because the trash is sitting out there. And now people are putting their trash out at like 2 in the afternoon. So they're not going by the 5 p.m. put out anyway. And then the other thing I just wanted to say about ACE is I know ACE does their pickups. I do stuff with the Rain Garden on 86th and 1st. I totally love the idea of some kind of sensor, because so often we're creating more trash instead of actually stopping trash, because we're creating more black bags with 20 items in them. And they do their route. So, and I've asked the guys, and they do their route. They sometimes pick up on the street in between the trash baskets, but sort of they go to a trash basket, they tie up the bag and put a new bag in.
Okay.
So that is how that works, you know. So it potentially creates, it's like picking up dog poop with dog bags. It's great that it keeps it isolated, but it also makes it less compostable. It also creates more trash. So
Okay, great.
I don't know what the answer to that is, but thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate those insights. I think we did have some concern about supers not being really supportive of, the program, understandably, if they didn't want to have to put the trash out later. But I think that's a great point about, doing the 5 a.m. Or the 7 a.m. pickups where they can put trash out at 5 a.m. I think that's actually a great point. And I do really appreciate that, because I think that was definitely a concern for our offices. So it's a nice alternative, I guess, if you would prefer like an early morning versus a late night pickup. And yeah, again, I totally understand and agree with the concern about creating extra waste, when we don't have the sensors. And I thank you for bringing that to our attention, you and Diego, because I don't think that was necessarily on our radar. But that's why we come to these meetings, so we can get some new ideas here.
That's a very interesting thought, 5 a.m. Do we have anybody else?
I don't see any other raised hands.
No. I just had one.
Oh, go ahead, Cus.
No, go on.
Well, there is a point that Diego raised, and I don't think we really discussed it, which was the big belly trash cans. Can we just hear a little bit about what funding for that looks like, and maybe Marissa, you have some insight into how those are working and the cost, and then perhaps Jesse and Cameron, you've also looked into it. My understanding is that they're kind of costly, but the advantage is sometimes to do the solar power compacting. Can anyone speak to that?
Big Belly's corner baskets are through our sponsor basket program. DSNY does not pay for any of those. We don't purchase the Big Bellies. That would be, they can be bought by individuals or organizations, bids or associations, anything like that. They are very costly because there's also maintenance fees that are part of that, and because they are bolted down into the ground and into the sidewalk. We also don't open them. They have to be emptied by somebody else, and we pick up the bags that are next to them. We don't go inside Big Bellies. So that's another issue. Again, like we're talking about for the Upper East Side, if you don't have a bid or an association who's going to do that, then it's just going to sit in there. I don't know too much. I know they occasionally break the Big Bellies. The compactor part of it breaks a little bit. It looks better. It's harder to get the garbage in there, so it's harder to root around in there. So they're not bad, but we just pick up the garbage that's next to it. You definitely need that third party, or just that partner to get them done. So they're not being. I don't get too many orders for them as I do with the other higher end PCR type baskets that we have through the sponsor basket program.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with Marissa. I've bugged her about it 5-6 times already at this point, because we always get constituents asking, and the guidance is, unfortunately, you need an organization to really do a lot of heavy lifting, and without a bid, and no bids in our district, that really makes it difficult in places on 2nd Avenue or on 86th Street, where it would really make a lot of sense to have it. That's not to say we've given up. Again, we're pushing on this bid, and we've been meeting with SBS, and that wouldn't be a conversation for the sanitation committee, but that is something that I think that is one of the reasons why we are so supportive of efforts, because you can then have a provider who can be helpful for things like, whether it's Big Belly, whether it's clean curbs, containerized waste, all these sorts of things, require those sorts of organizations, which we have a dearth of in our neighborhood.
But we have a lot of big buildings on the corners, and we have some very expensive buildings on the corners. Has anything been done more about the sponsorship program of the corner baskets?
Cause I can just, and Marissa can chime in, I believe that if you look at Community Board 8, we have the best level of baskets probably out of any community district in the city. You can see them all along the 1st and 2nd Avenue, many of them funded, whether it's by us, by our predecessors. They are great baskets. And then in areas that wouldn't even, we have SAC covering in Community Board 6, where we are, down up 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue. The baskets are great. Obviously they could be better, but I think that really the only would be a Big Belly, and we haven't seen any appetite from buildings. And Marissa can kind of correct me if she thinks I'm wrong, but I think that in fact, when we came into office, we were told that DSNY was hesitant to even let us upgrade the basket stock because that basically they were as good as they could be. We were at the highest level.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think also what would be cool is to have those buildings adopt those baskets and change out the liners, and then,
Right.
put the overflow, the full bag next to it. I don't know how into it they would be. If you reach out to any of them, if you get any interest, let me know. If you give me a list of them and want, me to send a field officer or myself to go talk to them, happy to do that as well. Just let me know which ones you're thinking of, or, as long as there's no Ace or Wildcat, at those corners, because they're doing that work already. If they're truly, just on their own baskets, we can definitely help enrolling anybody who wants to adopt it, as long as they're going to do the work. Not that you get penalized, but why sign up if you're not going to help?
Yeah, true.
I don't want to be repetitive, but sorry, Cameron and Jesse, is that something your offices are doing with the outreach to buildings? And if so, how's that going?
No, in our perspective, we want someone to, if someone flags a corner for us, we'll usually engage with DSNY and ACE to see what is the issue with this corner, right? We have certain problem corners, say 85th and Lex was one that we had earlier that we worked to remedy. 83rd and 2nd is one that I talked to Marissa about incessantly. The door becomes dislodged often and doesn't close, and then the basket kind of peeks out. When we get corners that are problematic, that aren't covered on our ACE route, and are kind of as they're standalones, I think that is a good solution to pursue. But there's currently no kind of problem child corners that we have right now that qualify in that.
What about if we get somebody walking up First Avenue, down Second Avenue, every single corner, all they would have to do is look at 4 buildings? Could that be a project for a university or a college graduate or something for, I mean, you know, it's
Community service.
community service.
I mean, if they wanted to, they could certainly do that. I don't think our offices could necessarily like sponsor anything like that, to my knowledge. I mean, again, if we were approached by someone who was, you know, willing to do that or wanted to do that, I mean, we would definitely be open to partnering with them. But I think it would be sort of a difficulty in that sort of like outreach, because we wouldn't necessarily be able to do like recruitment for that. It would be hard to find someone to do that for free, I think.
Oh, definitely. Anybody else have any question or?
Just on,
well, I guess
on the thing about, you know, having a problem corners reported, are we able to use 311 data to assess that at all? Complaints, is that, you know, something we can look at and we say, wow, there's a frequent complaint on 311, you know, let's identify that as a corner, or do you need someone a human to come to your office?
Well, it doesn't have to be our office. I mean, I think that if sanitation hears about a corner consistently, and Marissa can speak more to this, you know, sanitation does a phenomenal job of, you know, if there's an issue, there are plenty of issues that don't even, you know, people will just call 311, they won't even call their council member's office. And, you know, it becomes flagged, it's reported 3 times, they get 311 complaints. And, you know, whoever from DSNY comes over, they visit, they talk to the building super, they see what's going on. They try and have a conversation. Maybe they have to come back, maybe they issue a violation, but, you know, DSNY is pretty responsive. I mean, you could look at 311 data to see where there's some bad areas, but I think a lot of the areas that would come up would be areas that are either on our office's radar or already on the sanitation department's radar.
Yep, pretty much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We had a question from Evelyn David.
Okay, Evelyn.
Confirm unmuting on your device, Evelyn.
Hello?
Yep, we can
Yep.
hear you.
Oh, hi. This is not, you know, I used to work for sanitation. We were responsible for designing some of those baskets in the commissioner's office. Anyway, that's a long time ago. My name's Evelyn David. Good evening. And I thought it was going to be full board, but it's completely not. So I'm happy it's sanitation. And good evening. Very fast, off the cuff question about snow plows. Is there any way for Park Avenue, when you do the snow plowing, you can get the plow to be facing the other direction to put the snow on the medium? And I know it's off the subject, but winter is coming. So I thought I'd throw that out there in case you're all on there and can scratch your heads and go, how can we do that?
The answer is no. All our plows turn to the right.
Yes, I know that, but they could turn to the left because I asked somebody.
No, yeah, they definitely can. Just that's not protocol to turn them to the left.
Okay, would it be possible to ask?
Yeah, I've asked in the
As
past.
a
I've always been
suggestion?
told it goes to the right.
What? Sorry?
Oh, I've had that conversation in the past with snow ops, and I've been told it goes to the right.
They won't do it for Park Avenue because of the median. You know, you could put the snow there instead of putting it on the people.
What's
Anyway.
right next? Okay.
What's right next to what?
What's right next to the median? Is it just still the car lane, or is that a bike lane?
No, there's no bike lane. There are no bike lanes on Park Avenue.
Right, but it's gonna it'll go up against
ahead.
the median, but that's still within a driving lane, isn't it? A traffic lane.
Yeah, but the way it is right now, when you put the snow to the right, the driving lane is gone anyway. It's either going to be, I mean, if you can do the thing with the you know, where it goes out and gets on that pipe and it goes onto the median. In other words, it gets funneled out. You know what I mean? There's a way to put a funnel. So the snow doesn't actually, it goes out up on top and it goes on the median. You wouldn't even be blocking a lane. You would be pushing some snow to the right, to the left. But right now, pushing it to the right, you cut off the lane anyway. You completely cut off the lane. There's so much snow.
Doesn't the median on Park Avenue, isn't that about 2 or 3 feet above the driving level?
Yes, but there is a way to put, there's a pipe that you can get the snow up and out from it. I don't know how it works. There's a way to make it go up and over the truck.
Right, but that
through
would be
a pipe.
a major. That would be a major.
Well, no, it would be one truck that would go up and do one side and then come down and do the other side. That could be loaded up with a pipe that put the snow on the, you know, it doesn't shovel it. It zooms it up through a pipe and go, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know what it's called. Right. I'm explaining it. I don't know. Even if you put it off to the I don't know. Even if you put it off to the left and got some of it up on the median, I don't know, anything to help out. That's all.
Would that be something Marissa DSNY could look at, or it's a definite no?
I mean, I'll bring it up again. I've never heard of this pipe situation. Is this something that you've seen us use in the past?
Yes, I have. Yes. Where the snow goes, it goes shooting out of something and it goes either into the back of the truck or it goes someplace else. I've seen it out in the countryside too. I mean, this definitely exists.
These are like the small snow blowers people have for their driveways.
That's exactly right. It's like a snowblower thing, but it's a bigger pipe and it. Yeah, exactly.
You've seen it on a truck?
Yes, absolutely.
Like on a DSNY collection truck, not out in the country, on one of our trucks.
No. I'm sure I've seen it on your trucks.
Oh.
Okay, I'll ask. I've never heard of that before, but I'll definitely ask Snow Ops tomorrow, I guess. I will.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe they could, you know, if they know what it is and what I'm talking about, say, she got a good idea, let's check it out. How about that?
I mean, we wouldn't be able to buy more. If we have it already, that's a different thing. We wouldn't be able to buy.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, I wonder how much it would cost.
Cameron and Jesse are here to fund it.
Yeah, look, if DSNY can send us what it is and what it would cost, we could certainly look into it.
Oh, great. Okay. Okay, anyone else with questions? I think what are we up to? Single-use plastic bags. Do we have anybody, or are we going to table it for the next meeting?
Well, if I may just speak on it for a sec and introduce it, and then I guess, you know, I would first turn to Marissa on this. So back in September, the City Council had a hearing on Intro 494. This is a study of single-use plastics. It's sponsored by Councilmember Nurse, who is the chair of the Sanitation Committee. Councilmember Menon is a co-sponsor. Councilmember Powers is a co-sponsor. It actually has 33 councilmember co-sponsors. And essentially what this legislation would do is, and let me make sure I've got my summary up in front of me here. But as it sounds, it's a study of single-use plastic use in New York City, single-use plastics being defined as plastics designed to be used only once, really, for drinking, eating, and packaging, for example. And the legislation calls for a thorough review of the research and literature on reducing single-use plastics. It calls for a review of laws and regulations in other jurisdictions that have been aimed at achieving this. It would call for conducting interviews of scientists, experts, government officials, and others with relevant expertise. It would assess the alternatives to single-use plastic items. It would conduct a comprehensive review of the recyclability of single-use plastic items. It would consult with representatives of affected groups, and it would retain experts, and the Department of Sanitation may require to carry out the study. It calls for Sanitation to submit a final report by December 1st, 2023. Now, I haven't had a chance to watch the hearing, and I don't know whether DSNY was in favor or against. I got the sense that DSNY may have had some answer that was along the lines of, we're already doing this, we're already working towards single-use plastic reduction, but I don't want to speak for sanitation. So, Marissa, I don't know if you came prepared to speak to this at all, if you know sanitation's position on the legislation, but maybe I'd start with you, and then Jesse and Cameron, I don't know if you're able to speak on your council members' support for this.
I don't want to speak on behalf of sanitation. I personally don't know. Can you do me a favor? Can you just tell me again the intro number so I can look it up and bring it over to the chief of staff?
Yep, it's intro 494.
494, Councilmember Nurse. Okay, to be honest, I actually don't know. I haven't heard much about this within the halls of sanitation. So let me check on that for you, because just personally, I don't know what our position is, and I don't want to speak on it if I just don't have that information in front of me.
But doesn't some law exist on the books now in New York with plastic bags, that there's no more plastic bags?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a plastic bag ban and also a plastic straw ban, I think, that was maybe revised during the COVID pandemic or lifted briefly. I don't want to be quoted on that. I will say I pulled up Commissioner Tish's testimony on this intro, and maybe I'll just read what the Sanitation Commissioner said about this. She said, lastly, regarding intro 494, we look forward to working with the council to continue the city's leadership role in taking on single-use plastics. In particular, our upcoming waste characterization study will provide valuable information about the success of past bans on foam products and single-use plastic bags, and we hope that study can also inform our future policy efforts in this area. So that's all I was able to pull up quickly. That sounds to me as if, hey, we have a waste characterization study and maybe that does the trick and this is duplicative. But again, I'm only kind of riffing here a little bit. So I'll pause there and see if Jesse or Cameron, you have any comments on this legislation and Councilmember Powers and Menon's support for it.
Well, I didn't come prepared to speak on this. I thought we were speaking more about general, discretionary allocations. So I don't really want to speak too much on behalf of the council member. I know she is a co-sponsor. Based on just looking at the bill quickly, it seems like something that is very much in line with her views, the stuff that she is supportive of. There's a lot of other initiatives. The Skip the Stuff bill she has signed on to that Marjorie Velasquez introduced, which is, with deliveries and not having the supplemental, plastic silverware in the bags, unless you're actually requesting them. It's certain initiatives like that, which will be studied further as well to see their actual impact on reducing the use of single-use plastics.
Maybe we can have this for next month, Billy.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. And just for the record, we did try to get someone from Councilmember Nurse's office to speak to this. Unfortunately, I think they were unavailable for tonight,
Right.
but we'll try again. I would think this is something that we might want to support as a committee with a resolution at some point, but perhaps we hold this over for a future meeting.
Okay, thanks. Should we go on to the next one? Shed removals. I was reading some time ago that how many sheds have been removed by DSNY so far, Marissa?
So excuse me 1 second, as I get my piece of paper out. In District 8, we have removed 2 sheds. 1 second. One of them was Liberator, 235 89th Street. That was back on August 15th. Then we removed Napkin Burger, 1325 2nd Avenue on September 8th. I do want to note that this program is through DOT. They have removed some sheds without DSNY's assistance. They didn't need us for whatever reason. So there may be more in your district that have been removed, but DOT would have the full list of dining sheds that have been removed within your district. But the ones that we have on file that we assisted with were those 2.
So you only do the assisting. You have no control of which ones get removed for
Correct.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
Cos, let me chime in here, and I have to hop off in a second, but I want to
Yeah.
share this because it's important. We have been working with the community who's been flagged a lot of good ones, right? We heard, and we worked with Councilmember Powers' office on the 5 napkin one. DOT, ever since over the summer, actually I think it was early September, the mayor, Councilmember Menon was there, Councilmember Velasquez from Consumer and Worker Protection. Everyone was really committed to making this interagency cooperation on the sheds. And since then, the removals have been much faster. And a lot of it has just been DOT. So we have been flagging with them individually, and they'll kind of send us updates on a week-by-week basis. So I can actually even pull this up for you quickly right now. In addition to 5 napkin burger, we heard from DOT that there's the shed at Couture's. They were considering removal, but it's now in compliance. They've issued notices to correct deficiencies to Quattro Gatti and Dorian's Red Hand. They removed the shed at Sushi Ren, which is on 82nd and 2nd Avenue. So there's been a flurry of activity, and those are just to name a few. And we've been encouraging folks, reach out to our office. We will, if it's not already on our radar, add it to the DOT list. I know sanitation does help with some of them, but DOT has been sending out inspectors and has been very diligent about it.
Oh, good. So it's a DOT problem, not a DSNY problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the jurisdiction, it falls under their program, the outdoor dining. So they're making the most decisions about it, but we help whenever we can, whenever they call us.
Okay. No, I was just reading the article that mentioned DSNY removing them. Didn't mention DOT, didn't mention anything. So that's what made me curious. Okay. What else, Billy? Do we have anything else?
No, I think just old business and new business. And I don't have any old business. Do you, Cos?
Nope. No old, no new. Anybody else have any final comments before we sign off?
Can I say one thing, Cos? I'm sorry.
If it's good, yes.
It is a good thing. Sorry, I have a couple of more notes about the new set out law for collection. Can I just add a couple of more things? There's a lot of comments. I know I'm a little behind, but I had it all ready, and then we kept moving, and I was like, oh, I don't want to interrupt. So I do just want to say that collection set out time change that begins April 1st of 2023 for residential buildings. We're going to change. It's going to be pushed back to 8 p.m. as we all know. If it's in a container or if the trash is in a receptacle or any sort of container, it could be put out at 6 p.m. So that's only 2 hours later that it currently is. If a building has 9 or more units, they can enroll in a program that will allow them to set out the garbage between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. on the day of collection, which I know that was spoke about before about the porters and the supers. We did speak to the union that represents them. So we definitely had them in our mind for months and weeks. So don't worry, we didn't do this without caring about what time people will go home or come into work. That was thought about. For commercial establishments, collection is going to be pushed back to 8 p.m. for them as well. They can put it out an hour before business closes if it's in a container. And just a couple of highlights. This is in conjunction with increasing the percentage of routes serviced at night, and it's going to decrease the time between the trash set out and collection. So that's what we're really pushing for, is having this out as minimal time as possible. Also to focus on mitigating the citywide rat issue, of course. If they're in a container, the less time on the street, less food for the rats. Also assist with having, mountains of unsightly and smelly garbage. I think we all know that. Less time out there just looks a lot better for us. And it's going to take up a lot less footprint footprint on the city sidewalks as well. So I just wanted to add a couple of those little notes for the record, just so that you all have it. I know a couple of people were wondering what day it started. I know we had April, which was the best answer, but April 1st exactly is when it'll start.
Now, is that going to be an April Fool's joke?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll make a good joke. I'll have a few months. I'll work on a good joke about it that we'll put on social media. Yes. So yes.
Why was the reasoning behind a certain number of units of the buildings that they can put it out?
That's actually just been our standard. For a lot of other programs that we have, it's 9 or more. Like for our e-cycle, for refashion, just for a bunch, even for composting, like depending on what, like, you know, when you need it to have your super or building manager enroll you, is if it's 9 or more. So I'm not sure. I guess because that really runs the gamut. You know, it goes from 10 to about 500 units, as we know in Manhattan. Got some giant buildings. So just, you know, a little more, you know, that's a lot more garbage, because 9 units could still be just 6 bags or something. That's, you know, not tremendous. But once we get bigger, it becomes a mountain.
But I'm just curious, how many buildings roughly would have 9 units or less in CB8?
Oh, good point. I don't know how many would be in CB8 because it's a citywide rule. I think that's why.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. That explains it. Citywide. I'm concentrating on the CB8, definitely.
As you should.
Yep.
It's your
Well,
job.
Anybody else before we end the session? Okay, I would like to thank Marissa, Jesse, and Cameron, and thank you all for attending.
Thanks,
We
everybody.
can
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
move to adjourn.
Second. Take care all.
Thanks, Bill. Speak to you later.